Madam Chair, members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the July 9th meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett and I am the chair. I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Cristina Arado.
Michael Galway.
Mark Dominiani.
This is Commissioner Dolman.
Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff.
Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff. Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
And Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you. And the first item on our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, they were advertised in the June 25th edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. If anyone is here to testify for any of the cases, please give a speaker form to staff, and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to case number 1A at 11650 Snowden Farm Parkway in Germantown? Case 1C at 7130 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case 1D at 104 Park Avenue, Tacoma Park. Case 1G at 4103 Stamford Street, Chevy Chase. Or case 1H at 10814 Kenilworth Avenue, Garrett Park.
Madam Chair, hearing no objection, I move that we approve the following hops in accordance with the facts and the findings included in the staff reports, including any conditions as recommended by staff. Hop number 1112013 at 11650 Snowden Farm Parkway in Germantown. Hop number 1121765 at 7130 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1118976 at 104 Park Avenue, Tacoma Park. Retroactive hop number 1121559 at 4103 Stanford Street, Chevy Chase. And hop number 1121618 at 10814 Kenilworth Avenue, Garrett Park.
Thank you. Do I have a second on the motion?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any nays or abstention? There are not, so all of these hops are approved, and we thank you for preparing hops and working with the staff to prepare hops that are easily approvable. Moving on, we will move on to the preliminaries, and our first preliminary tonight is 2A at 11650 Snowden Farm Parkway, Germantown. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is actually a second preliminary consultation for work to the project. Again, this is the House Farm master plan site. The house was constructed in circa 1884 with modifications through the 20s. Most of the agricultural accessory buildings were built between the 20s and the 30s. And we're dealing with the barn that you see in front of you. Just by way of background, when this was nominated to the master plan, it was identified under 3 criteria as an excellent example of late 19th and early 20th century family farming in the Clarksburg area, for embodying the distinctive characteristics of a high-style Gothic Revival farmhouse, and as an established and familiar feature in the community once dominated by family farms. So just over a year ago, the HPC held a preliminary consultation to discuss demolishing the existing barn and constructing a new building similar in appearance to the existing barn in its place. The HPC was generally supportive of the concept and supported staff's identified list of materials as required for a HOP, including as-built and existing drawings of the barn, a structural engineer's report documenting the condition of the barn, demolition plans, and material specifications for the new construction. This is the barn in question. This aerial's a little outdated, as several of these outbuildings have been demolished with the HPC's approval, and the house has a new roof in place. So again, the applicant proposes to demolish the existing barn, which is a historic double-sided corn crib, and use the new barn-like building as assembly space. And the barn is in poor shape. I think the documentation shows where those material failings are. Additionally, the applicant provided additional photographs as part of the submission. And in the lower right, you see the floors don't align where the cribs for the corn are, or where the corn cribs were located originally. So you've got, the building is basically chopped up into 5 spaces, and that really limits its use for the community owners. So the new building will look similar to the old. It'll have siding that matches. We'll get into details a little bit, but the proposal is to sort of maintain the existing fenestration. There is a slight break in the roof, which isn't as large as the existing break. Again, the fenestration will match on the north and west and east elevations as well. So again, the project is to demolish the existing barn, retain and reuse the salvageable materials, and construct a new building in its place that reproduces the agricultural character of the existing barn. And you see with the engineered steel truss, they'll be able to have a large open space as part of the new building. So the applicant provided additional information. Staff and the staff report found that the metal roof system proposed is compatible with the agricultural character of the barn. That the amount of visible concrete foundation will not detract from the character of the proposed building, and that the minor grading and French drain installation, whether installed as part of the building construction or later, will not have a substantial impact on the visual character of the site. The application states that 40 to 50% of the existing framing could be salvaged and reused. However, the information does not identify where that material is being salvaged from or where it will be installed in the new building. One of the reasons that we're having this is to sort of solicit information from the commissioners. For example, does the HPC require additional information regarding the salvage materials, and if so, what form should that take? Are notated and proposed drawings sufficient, or is more information required? The applicant indicated that their barn contractor provided that material estimate, but the only thing that we received is the number, and then a number of the number of the timbers and their sizes, but not how they're going to be integrated into the new building. So if materials can be salvaged but not reused, does the HPC find that the applicant must retain them, or are they going to put conditions on a desirable way of disposing them? So there are a number of outstanding materials that staff finds are required for a HOP. Detailed specifications for the windows and doors. The information that we received is that they will be wood made to resemble the originals, but the level of detail is not sufficient to make a determination of appropriateness. Usually if there's one element outstanding, staff will condition or make a recommendation that the HPC condition the approval. However, because of all of these exterior treatments, we felt that just reminding the applicant that these are required as part of a complete application, which includes detailed measure drawings, including profiles of the windows and doors, trim and sill details, and then detailed specifications for the vestibule area. All right, we're still good. So the questions for the HPC tonight is, do you find that the identified materials will be sufficient to render a decision on the appropriateness of the final HOP submission? And if not, what other materials are necessary, and what form do those materials need to take? And lastly, while not addressed in the staff report, does the HPC support the flattening of the proposed roof pitch, or do the applicants need to better replicate the existing roof form? Lastly, the applicant provided the schematics to sort of provide a little more information about what the appearance of the vestibule would be, which is sort of a glass wall using a storefront system here. Staff would fully support a hop approval without the vestibule and a second hop for the vestibule at a later date if the applicants are sort of really pushing to get permit review under and construction going. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman?
Yes, this is Commissioner Doman. If the applicant provides you with the information that appears to be lacking at this point, can we as a commission delegate to staff to review the information that's provided and to move ahead on this project, or do we have to come back for a hop?
So this was advertised as a prelim, so you can't vote for it like a hop. However, if the HPC's feedback is consistent, the applicant, invariably we encourage applicants potentially to get started on the engineering portion of their packet, because usually applicants won't do that until after the hop approval. There are steps that they could begin taking, but it would need to come back and we would expect it to be approved by consent based on the feedback of the commissioners. So no, you can't approve a hop this evening, but you can provide the applicant with your opinions as to the appropriateness of what's proposed and a likely vote at a future meeting.
Okay, and then I just want to state for the record that I did visit the site yesterday, and I did meet with, I guess, the applicant out there, and I was confused about the vestibule. I wasn't sure how that looked and how that presented, so I wanted to take a look at that. And I did walk around the building, so just for the record, I was out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Doman. This is Rebecca Ballo. So to clarify, you are offering this as evidence of your ex parte communication with the applicant,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, the applicant can come forward, Mr. Brett Denevi, and you will have 7 minutes to make your case or answer questions or whatever you would like to say. No? And just make sure you turn on the mic so the light's green, and then identify yourself by name and your relationship to this project for the record. Thank
Good
you.
afternoon, Madam Chair. I'm Pramod Casey for the record.
All right, thank you, sorry.
It's all right. And good evening, all the commissioners and HPC staff. Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions if you have regarding this hub.
Yes, I'll start with, are you going to make a statement or anything, or just?
Yeah, the only statement I would like to make is, this barn has waited too much for another life, and then, we've been trying hard to give it a better shape and a new life so we all can enjoy a beautiful barn, and not only for our community, for the entire community of Clarksburg and Germantown area. I mean, so far, this barn is only habitating rodents, bees, wasps, everything there. We want to make habitable for human as well. So, yeah, that's my final statement, and then I'm looking forward to get a HOP approved by this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? I'll start off with my first question is about the wood that's going to be possibly salvaged and reused. Are we talking structural members, or are we talking more just siding or something like that? And what would be what would you be using this for? What are you thinking it would be appropriate to be used for?
So, thank you. So all the analysis that we did so far is a visual inspection. We haven't done any destructive testing of the material. So looking at the main portion of the barn, so 40 to 50% of the structural members are salvageable. So we want to reuse as structural members. Whereas talking about the siding, so half of the siding from the bottom up is kind of rotten by the water damage. So I'm not sure if we can use that. So those are not considered as salvageable, but we are happy to give this away as a donation to any other historical property if they want to use it.
So related to you said the what's going to be salvageable to be reused are structural members. And are you talking about reuse for the trusses you're going to be using or other structural members?
Other structural members of the trust.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Doman?
I think one of the questions from staff was, I guess I have this, it's a list of items that can be salvaged, okay, which was put out. And in that, it lists 3 6 by 3/4 by 7 3/4 10-inch posts. So anyway, you have all these items. Are you going to identify where they came from, or how do you keep track of them? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, thank you. So what we'll do with all that material that can be salvaged, we'll make an inventory of all the material that we take out from the existing barn, and we'll make a table, where it came from and how it is going to be used. So final report will show you, okay, how many members are salvaged and where they are now. So we'll keep a 100% record of all the materials that we take out and reuse.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani?
I have a question for you. One of the items that staff brought up was with regards to the change in roof pitch from the barn as it exists today versus the new structure to be built in its place. I'm noting in some of the drawings too that yes, it appears less steep, or perhaps maybe the pitch on the outer wings has been softened. I was wondering if you can describe, if there is a decision-making process by which you arrived at these roof pitches, and yeah, maybe what the change may have originated from.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So this is more like an architectural question, but I think to meet with or comply with the IBC code, the floor on the wings has to be raised. I think there's a minimum standard. And then also, I think when we raise that, I think the center portion also needs to be raised. So I think that's the reason that I think there is a slight change, but I think that is fairly not noticeable, I guess.
Thank you for explaining it. It makes sense, understanding that some of the wings were quite short in ceiling height also, where they were in the existing way. I have to think more about the pitch and how it changes the historic character of the building, but thank you for your explanation.
Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, going back to the vestibule. Now, when I saw it, it's recessed in. So I guess there was like an option that you could address it right now, or you could come back for a hop later if you decide to enclose it, okay? And obviously it hasn't been torn down yet. So you're gonna tear this building down, you're gonna reconstruct a new building. Is your intent, or do you even know, is your intent to enclose this vestibule now, or come back later and see how the weather is and how it works out? Do you have any idea?
I mean, we want to have a vestibule there, just for a weather for climatic control. And it will not hinder any historical value of the barn. So we have a frame. Right now, there's a shape already cut out there. So we're just going to feed a frame and the glass panels there. So it works as a vestibule. Yeah, we can come back later for the different hop, or we can run it through HPC staff for their approval. So that's a phase 2 work for us.
Just to clarify, Commissioner Doman, the reason that we sort of identified splitting them up is just if the applicant wasn't prepared with the specification for the treatment, that we as staff would be more than happy to carry that forward as a second hop and approve, recommend approval with the HPC's comments, the new building without that vestibule. So that was sort of, potentially if it was easier for the applicant without identifying specifications and dimensions that would be required for a complete hop, that we could move forward with the building proper and then do the vestibule as a second option. Additionally, the length of construction could also mean that having the vestibule approved as a second hop may not slow down construction at all. So we're just throwing that out there as a possibility and an option, and just making the HPC aware of where we stand on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I guess I would like to ask about the vestibule as well. You're using a storefront system, which is a very modern-looking component system. Had you looked at anything that would have a more of a historic feel to it?
Yeah, we haven't gone that far with the details, but we'll try best. We'll 100% match with the window paneling of the barn. So this will not be any distinct from what we have, the window panels, the existing windows. So we'll try to match it with that.
Okay.
And yeah, it will just look like a bigger window. That's all.
Okay, thank you. If there are no more questions, then we can start our deliberations. Would somebody like to go first with their comments? Commissioner Radu.
Just a few comments. I think this is a great use for the property, and I'm sad that the barn condition deteriorated over the years, but I'm glad that you are reconstructing it, and I don't have any issues with the slope of the roof being changed. I understood your explanation even last time about the grade change and everything. I think the materials, I'm assuming that you're gonna bring a little bit more definition to the hop in the sense of, I saw some of the answers in the report, so if those are incorporated to be clear, what is the configuration of the door and it matches what was there. I don't have actually an issue with the vestibule. It is a clear modern system, and I would actually keep it modern to be clear that you're not trying to say that it was such anything before there, so it was a vestibule, an open space there. Trying to look at the questions the staff had about the reuse of the structural members. I think in the hop, if you can identify in principle, if you're gonna try to use them kind of continuously on a wall, or you're gonna use them dispersed, if you will. So maybe, at least the intent, maybe in reality, it's not gonna be as built like that, but what is the intent? I would like you to put it in the hop. I wouldn't have any problem with the hop like what you're presenting with the few clarifications noted on the drawings.
Who would like to go next? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. I really like what you've done with this. I think you've brought it along, and for the most part, I'm pretty satisfied with seeing this a second time. A couple comments. I think in terms of the materials, I think the hop should just identify those materials. I think you said something in there about one window, and maybe you would replicate that, but I think you need to provide those details as part of the hop so that we don't have any, try not to have us have any questions. Would be the best advice I can give you there. You're staying true to the materials. You're not trying to substitute with PVC or any. So I think in that case you're on the right approach. The pitch does bother me a little bit, and I would ask that you work with if it's a structural engineer on the truss. I actually think you might even be able to raise the upper portion, the ridge line, even higher to get you a little bit more pitch without losing space inside, without losing the height inside. I think it's a bit too flat, and a broken back barn, that is the distinguishing feature in my mind. The number one distinguishing feature of this old barn is the broken back. And by flattening that out a little bit, it just starts to lose that to a point where it's just not, it's too subtle for me. So if there's something with the truss that you could do, even maintaining the minimum pitch on the low roof. You might even adjust it and have that lower piece be a little shorter. Maybe that's something you could look at. But I think if you could study that, that's the only thing that really troubles me at this point. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani?
I agree with everything the other commissioners have stated so far, and I agree with Commissioner Galway, actually, in looking at the side-by-side comparison of the roof pitch. I think it would be a way to preserve this special characteristic of that shape of the roof, if it's possible. I understand we did talk about it, I believe, too, at the first preliminary a few months ago when that was. And I would just say, too, that in general, I think it's coming along great, and I think I could find myself supporting a HOP related to this, noting that successful HOPs generally do have these sort of detailed measurements and drawings of windows and doors, too. Specifications on materials, I think, is also very important. And yeah, I just want to commend you again for making the effort to bring back the character of this building to the extent. We've seen so many recently that have degraded to the point of sort of demolition by neglect on other properties up county, and it's excellent to see an applicant who wants to preserve some of these sort of agricultural heritage buildings. So yeah, I commend you on that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
I don't have too much more to offer. I think it's been pretty well covered. I think this is a great project. I think it's been well thought out by the applicant in this case. I did visit the site. There's a lot of damage to the wood, but I think the applicant is making a genuine effort to save whatever can be saved will be saved. A lot of the inside timbers and supports and columns and purlins that go across are in fairly good shape and can be reused, and I believe that the applicant will work with his contractor to salvage them, mark them, identify them, and reuse them as appropriate. So I think I think we'll see a lot of reused wood in this project. I think it's really going along very well. The outside siding, as you've seen in some of the pictures that staff provided, the bottom 8 inches or so has been pretty well rotted away, and you can't use all of that. But a lot of the interior wood is in very good shape. So I'd just like to say the applicant has done, the property presents itself very well. It's a very good neighborly project, and I think the neighbors should be proud of what's coming off out there. And I think this is well thought out project, and I look forward to seeing a HOP in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is Chair Burdett. I will finish up the comments. I concur with all the other commissioners. I also am concerned about the flattening of that roof. And I would suggest that when you talk to the engineer and when you think about this, don't think about it as what you would see close up from like the house, but consider that from the road, what it'll look like. Because from the road, if it's too flat, it's going to look flat. And at that point, it looks like just a modern building if it doesn't have that distinguishing characteristic. So keep that in mind when you take a look at this again. But you've heard our comments. Please work with staff to bring very detailed information back when you come in for your HOP. And we look forward to seeing you at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Moving on, we are going to, next is preliminary 2B at 7329 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report? Maybe.
We don't know if anybody is here for 2B.
We can move on to the preliminary C for right now.
If the chair would like, we can move on to 2C and see if anybody shows up for 2B. If the applicant does not show for 2B, we had informed them several times that this would be heard tonight as a preliminary consultation. So it is up to the board's discretion as to whether or not you want to hear it and provide your comments, or if you want to defer it until the applicant can attend. But in the meantime, we can move on to 2C. That applicant is here.
Yes, I think we'll move on to preliminary 2C, and once that's complete, then we can discuss what to do about 2B if that applicant doesn't come forward. So, preliminary 2C at 10210 Capitol View Avenue, Silver Spring. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, there is a report. This is Devin Martha for the record. This is the preliminary consultation for alterations to the property at 10210 Capitol View Avenue. The subject property is a 1920s bungalow with a large addition that was approved by the HPC in 1988. It is located in the Capitol View Park Historic District and is included in a category of resources that were constructed between 1917 and 1935. This designation category is most similar to the category of contributing in other historic districts and is subject to a moderate level of review under the approved and adopted sector plan for Capitol View and vicinity. The proposal is also subject to review under Chapter 24A of the Montgomery County Code and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. A little history about Capitol View Park. Capitol View Park developed as a railroad suburb beginning in the late 19th century and includes buildings executed in a variety of styles typical of suburban Montgomery County. This district is significant not for its individual high-style resources, but as a collection of folk and eclectic styles that communicate the history and development of the area. The 23 resources constructed between 1917 and 1935 are characterized by small lots and regular setbacks and are predominantly in the bungalow style. Many of them feature one-story porches and front gables. Although modest in appearance, their retention is essential to maintain the cohesive character of the district. The subject property was constructed in the 1920s along Capitol View Avenue. An addition was added to the east elevation of the property at some point after 1953, so it's not shown on these maps, but prior to designation in 1982. Here are some of the photos of the property at the time of designation, circa 1982, showing the one-story facade with a front porch. That's the photo on the left, and the east elevation addition, which is the photo on the right. In 1987, the HPC approved a large addition to the property. The addition was to appear as much as possible as a natural extension of the original cottage. Staff was not able to locate a complete set of plans for the 1987 approval. The Capitol View Park Local Advisory Council described the approved plans as having an L-shaped footprint, a roof slope and eave that were proportional to the existing resource, and a one-story porch to mirror the bungalow. The HPC approved hardyboard siding and window framing to match the historic resource. In 1988, the Capitol View Park LAC requested a violation and stop work order on the subject property, stating that the addition was not built to plans. The applicant constructed the addition to be 3 feet higher than approved and with unapproved features, including a floor-to-ceiling window on the south elevation and a 4x4 hyphen connecting the addition to the historic resource. The applicant then applied for a retroactive permit for the alteration, which appears to have been approved with some additional changes, including the substitution of vinyl siding as opposed to hardyboard and a gabled roof to the hyphen. So this is an aerial view of the house as it exists now. The historic bungalow is set back from Capitol View Avenue. The addition sits to the north of the bungalow closer to the right-of-way and is connected to the historic house by a small gabled hyphen. So here are some photos of it now. This is the historic facade, which is still visible with the front porch still intact. On the west side of the historic house, there's a small shed roof addition seen in the photo on the right. A large deck was constructed on the rear of the property, connecting the addition to the historic house. The deck sits at the level of the windowsills on the historic house. Due to the gaps in documentation related to this property, staff was not able to determine if this deck height was approved by the HPC when it was installed in the 1980s. Here are some photos of the 1980s addition. It extends in front of the historic house and features a full-width porch. And here are some more photos of the deck, which runs the entire length of the east elevation, beginning at the front porch, shown in the right-hand photo. The applicant is proposing to make several alterations to the 4-bedroom house in order to accommodate 3 additional bedrooms. These alterations include demolition of the front porch and facade of the historic house and construction of a 1-story addition to accommodate 1 new bedroom, demolition of the front porch and facade of the 1980s addition, and construction of a new 1-story addition to accommodate 2 new bedrooms, alterations to the fenestration, and the construction of a wood deck on the west elevation of the house to access a new front entrance. So for the first work item, the applicant is proposing to demolish the facade and front porch of the historic house and construct a front gabled 1-story addition that measures 5 feet 6 inches deep and 14 feet wide. The applicant is proposing vinyl siding. Staff finds this work item to be inappropriate and contravenes 24A-8B, as well as standards 2, 9, and 10. The 1-story front porch and gable end are character-defining features of the early 20th century bungalow. The removal of the facade would alter the resource beyond recognition and strip it of all its historic character. The historic facade is currently visible from the right-of-way along Capitol View Avenue, and its demolition would negatively affect the streetscape and the district as a whole. The applicant is also proposing to demolish the 1-story porch and facade on the 1980s addition and construct a new 1-story addition that measures 8 feet deep and 24 feet wide. The proposed siding is also vinyl. Staff is, in general, supportive of the demolition of the porch and facade on the 1980s addition. There's no historic material that will be removed as part of this alteration per 24A8 and the standards. However, staff does not support the design of the addition as proposed and finds it to be incompatible with the character of the existing historic house and the district as a whole. The approved 1987 addition was designed to mirror the scale, proportions, and details of the historic house. The proposed addition is boxy and does not relate to the existing resource. The inclusion of a front porch to mirror that of the existing house was an important part of the 1980s design as approved by the HBC and is notably absent from the new proposal. The applicant is proposing to construct a new deck on the west elevation of the 1980s addition for access to the proposed new front door. The proposed deck will be constructed with pressure-treated wood and vinyl railings. The front door was previously located on the facade of the historic house, and the applicant is proposing to relocate it to the side of the addition. Staff finds that the location of the new deck in front of the historic house is not appropriate. The deck would obscure the view of the historic house from the right-of-way along Capitol View Avenue and alter the spatial character of the property contra Standard 9. The applicant is proposing to alter the fenestration of both the historic house and the addition. Alterations include infilling 1 window opening on the east elevation and constructing a new opening to the south, installing 1 window opening on the west elevation and constructing a new window opening to the south, converting 1 window opening to a door opening on the west elevation, and removing 1 historic window and replacing it with a new egress window on the west elevation of the historic house. The applicant is proposing vinyl window trim but has not provided any other specifications for the windows. Staff finds that there is not enough information to evaluate the proposed new windows and recommends that the applicant submit specifications for windows and doors in the future. Staff also notes that any historic material should be retained and repaired or replaced with in-kind materials. Staff notes that vinyl is not an in-kind replacement for wood. Staff has a few additional concerns with the house that were not addressed in the proposal, including any regrading and hardscaping alterations to accommodate the new front entrance, the treatment of historic fabric in poor condition, and the unusual height of the deck, which appears to be causing issues with the windows and possibly the siding. Staff requests feedback from the HBC on the following: the overall appropriateness of the proposed demolition of the facade of the historic 1920s house and the new construction, the appropriateness of the fenestration, massing, and overall design of the proposed construction on the facade of the 1980s addition, the appropriateness of the relocation of the front entrance from the historic block to the 1980s addition, the appropriateness of the location of the new deck, and the appropriateness of the proposed materials that were provided as part of this application. Staff recommends the applicant make any revisions recommended by the HBC and return for a HOP or an additional preliminary consultation. Staff also recommends that the applicant submit the following to have a complete application: window, door, and any other material specifications, and a plan for the restoration of deteriorated historic fabric if this is part of the scope. That concludes the presentation, and I can take any questions now.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, this is really unusual project here. I mean, I've never seen anything quite like this. What was, do you have, why did the, I mean, you probably don't know because nobody was here at the time, but why in the world would the HBC approve this monster house in front of the other house? What was going on back then?
There's some documentation about their decision, but it's incomplete. So the best that I could glean from the documentation was that they were trying to retain as much of the historic house as possible by attaching with an L-shaped addition or a hyphen, but then also make a larger livable house. I do think it overwhelms the historic resource a little bit.
A little bit.
Which has to do with the alterations that weren't initially approved. It's also a difficult lot to build on. There's a steep slope at the end, at the rear south portion, and so I think it might have been difficult to pull it back further, but there's not complete documentation for the decision-making behind the very large addition.
Are we then, I don't think today we would ever approve this, okay? This large addition. It's there, okay? We have to just work with it as it is considered acceptable now. We have to live with it and just say we can modify it, but we can't say tear it out and start over again or something like that. So we're stuck with what's there.
It has already been approved by the HBC, so this is an approved addition.
So weird. Okay, and have you, I mean, I could think of 1,000 questions, okay, to ask about this whole project, okay? Has the applicant met with you many, many times? Have you had a lot of dialogue back and forth about what's going on, what the issues are with this?
I've spoken on the phone to the applicant to explain some of our concerns. They wanted to come forward with a preliminary consultation to get feedback. I believe the applicant or an agent is here to answer some of those questions for you now.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for staff? I do have one, and it kind of pertains to this addition from the 80s. Is the setbacks, is it up against the setbacks on the side yard? Do you know that?
There is a little bit of room, but it is taken up by the deck. But I don't think it's very large, how much space there is.
Okay. Thank you. If there are no more questions, we will let the applicant's agent, I believe, come forward, and you will have 7 minutes to make the best case you can. Please turn on the mic so the light is green, and then give your name and your relationship to this project. And again, you have 7 minutes to, I suggest, explain to us and make a case for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Drew Griswold. I'd be one of the project managers on this project. This is my first time here, so I'm a little bit excited, and I can tell you are all very excited as well. So a couple things. Obviously, the biggest thing we're looking for is just feedback on this. I I know the 1980s edition is definitely an interesting one, so we're kind of just looking to see what we're able to do to make this work and, yeah, make this happen. I know the biggest thing on the 1980s edition is the removal of the deck, so I just wanted to see kind of what we can do and what needs to happen.
That's it?
Yes, ma'am.
I've got a couple questions before I let everybody else start asking questions. A, does the owner understand that there are restrictions on what they can do on this property?
Yes.
Okay. Do they understand that they may not be allowed to do what they want to do?
Yes, and that's kind of what we're in the process of figuring out what our options are.
Okay. Now, the 1980s edition, with all of its issues, is there. We really can't do, we as a commission can't do anything about that. But we may offer you suggestions on how you make the best use of that so that this thing doesn't wind up looking like a huge box. Because this is a contributing resource, and in a historic district, that puts limitations on what you can do to the house. If this was coming forward today, a big edition, the 80s edition, it would never fly. We would not approve that. Even given the site, we would not have approved it. And we understand the restrictions on the site. I happen to live in a neighborhood with a bunch of bungalows. My street has a bunch of bungalows. And down the street from my house was the original sales house for the block when they were developing the block in the 1920s. And it has a little bungalow that sits at the very back of the lot where the developer, builder, had his offices, right? So they build up all the bungalows on the block. Everybody, they buy them and the different types of houses and all. Everybody's happy. He takes that house and puts an addition on the front of it to make it into a house. So I get where this is coming from. And it's not a beautiful addition, but it's one story. So in that regard, other than being kind of a plain Jane thing, it actually wasn't, it's not a terrible addition if they could have done more with it. But it isn't the tail wagging the dog. I'm not even sure that's an apt analogy. I keep thinking of like, this project is, if the house is a little toy poodle, the addition is a Great Dane that's got the poodle in its mouth. That's maybe a closer. Anyhow, so I just wanted to make sure that the owner understands, and you understand, that we will be giving you opinions. And we see a lot of big additions put on historic houses. They come through here all the time. Not all of them get to do what they want.
Of course.
And I don't recall ever seeing anything quite like this. All right. Anybody else? Would anybody like to ask some questions? Yeah. Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, I'm looking at the drawing. It shows, I'm trying to say this, I'm not sure what page we're on, but anyway, it has the rear windows, and it shows a deck right at the windowsill. What is going on there? Why is that deck so high, and it's like 1 inch below the windowsill on the back of the house in the pictures? What brought this about? I mean, I've never seen a window sitting on a deck like this. What happened?
It's definitely quite the interesting addition into the rear of it. I think that is a major reason why it's causing all the damage to the window right there. I'm not really sure the reasoning behind it, but obviously the main intention was not to do anything to it. But of course, if there's something we can do to pull this house together and make it look a little bit better, that is 100% our intention to do that.
Maybe I missed it, but are you going to raise the window, lower the deck, or what happens with these windows in your remodeling scheme?
Those windows specifically, we wanted to repair in kind. We want to come up with some sort of solution to not have it where it's perfectly level with it. If that's, the consensus on that is just demoing the entire deck with that, then that's the route that we'll have to go. There's not too much particularly that we could do to maintain it as it is in its current state.
Is the deck raised up like on framing? Could the deck be, I mean, I did not go by the house and I have not seen it, so I'm just curious why this weird situation occurred.
It's definitely odd. It's not raised off the ground particularly. It's slightly above it, but no, it's pretty in ground with it. I think it was more so just to make an area in the back that, as the staff stated, it's a pretty sloped backyard. So I think it was just to make a flat area in the back.
Okay.
I think there is a little bit of room to move the deck down, if I remember from being on site, especially as it moves backwards. I think there is a couple feet that it can be moved down.
Okay.
Any other questions? Has anybody digested this enough yet to? Yeah, we'll have lots of comments. I guess I've got a question or two. I mean, it's a big, the inside of this 80s edition, this big box, is it only one story in there with just vaulted ceilings, or is it 2 stories up in there?
So in the addition, there's a second floor to it. It's not an entire floor by itself, but it's one room and then kind of like a little loft area above it. So half of it's vaulted ceilings, the other portion's a second floor to it. So there is area for that. I believe we planned on making that the primary bedroom. But yeah, it's definitely a very interesting layout. I think that's the main reason why we were trying to lean towards changing the entry into the home, because it all funnels through the original entrance. So it's a very odd flow of the house.
Well, you're not going to get to change the existing entry. I mean, you're not going to get to change the facade of the existing house, period. That's not going to happen. But I find it I know the era that this addition was built, so I can kind of figure out what's going on in that house because that was really popular back then. And I just wonder, did you all consider taking that making that addition a full 2-story, 2-level house, get rid of the vaulted ceiling and adding some dormers on both sides of that roof, that huge roof, so that they get lots of windows, lots of light, and it wouldn't be towards the street, and you would get enough room up there to put bedrooms. Did they consider that option?
No, we hadn't spoken about that, but if that's something that would make the addition itself look better, and because I agree 100%, it's a huge box that's just sticking out. And the big thing that we don't want to do is make it look worse than it does right now. So if that would be something that all of you would recommend,
Yeah.
it's 100% something that we could lean towards. It wasn't something that we had originally discussed.
Okay.
I'm not sure how much additional space it would add.
Because I was looking at the floor plan, how many bedrooms do they want to put in this? 6 bedrooms?
It'd be 3 additional. Yes, ma'am.
3 additional to what's there. Wow. Because it's not the addition, well, the original house and the addition is not a small amount of square footage. True. But that's a lot of bedrooms in one house.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I do want to add, the staff had some questions for the applicant about that too, and I believe we have informed them of the zoning ordinance requirements and standards, that there can be no more than 5 unrelated people living in a house. It's our understanding that this house may not be for one family, but perhaps for a number of individuals, but that there's something else driving the number of bedrooms here, but there are zoning ordinance limitations on those as well, and we advise the applicant to take those limitations into consideration when organizing their program.
Thank you. Very wise. Pay attention. This is serious. You'll get in a lot of trouble. All right. Any questions? Commissioner Redu.
We're just talking about the square footage, and I see on your first, on the cover sheet, there is a table with an existing square footage and additional square footage. And it seems, I mean, there, you're only adding 500 some square feet. Nothing is being added to the second floor, just 200 some to the first floor, and I guess those are really at the two enclosed porches, yeah? I mean, we're not extending the footprint. I mean, it's just for 2,500, 6 bedrooms seems like a lot. I mean, is that accurate information there?
Yes, I believe, I know there's smaller bedrooms, but obviously, again, the goal is not to add onto the space of the house as much as possible, but more so to maximize the bedrooms.
Dividing it.
Correct.
Just to
Thank you.
interject, I believe it's a proposal for 7 bedrooms. There's 4 existing bedrooms, and you're proposing to add 3?
Let me just pull this up. Correct, with the bedroom on the second floor of the addition. Apologies about that.
So that's where staff had started to have discussions with other representatives from the applicant about the legal limitations on the number of unrelated people that could live in the house.
Thank you. Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, you identified yourself as the applicant's agent for this, right? So have you, or do you, or are you affiliated with an architectural firm?
Not directly, we're working with one right now, so we'd be doing the project itself, but it's the architect that we work with.
I mean, we see a lot of these projects, and there are some architects in the area that are well-versed in working with the HPC staff, and they know what the regulations are, and they know what looks good from a historic preservation standpoint. What you brought in here is, well, not acceptable, okay? And I would advise you to take the time to either work a lot with staff or else get yourself a good qualified architect that can really help you out on this project. I realize you've got this big house in front, you have to do something with it, but you need some help. You need someone that can make it look presentable and make it look like it fits in the neighborhood. So that's my recommendation right now.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions, and Commissioner Doman's kind of started off with his comments, would anybody like to go next? Commissioner Galway?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Galway. I appreciate you bringing this in, and it's going to be a huge uphill battle to get this commission to agree to what you've shown us today. I think it's just, we all talked about the big addition, the 80s addition, and how that would not have been approved today. But it is, and it's there. What I don't want to see is modification to it in itself that makes it look less attractive and makes it even harder to appreciate the original building. You know, I looked at the image where you enclosed the front porch of the 80s addition, and as a historic board, one of the first things we would do if we were restoring this would make the recommendation to pull that back off and return it to an old porch. So I think that's going to be a real struggle. Changing the existing, the original home as well, for me, would be a non-starter. So I kind of like, you know, what Commissioner Doman said is maybe getting somebody to look at how you could take the building, the mass that's there, and without just detracting from it and the original home, is there something you could do to add volume? And I don't have, there's no site plan that I saw, so I don't know how large, I'm sure the land, the property is pretty narrow, but maybe there's another way of increasing the square footage without putting it on the front of both of these homes. So, yeah, for me, it would be a tough, I wouldn't be able to go for it. Materials are also super important, and suggesting vinyl for the original home is a non-starter, and I'd even have to, given the mass and the just the visibility of the 80s edition, I even think that could be a hard pill to swallow. So I think you have a tough fight ahead of you here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Redu?
Just the main thing is still to retain the historic, whatever is left of that historic house at the back. So enclosing and modifying that porch is, I agree, I think the commissioner, the chair already noted that that's a non-starter there. And also a deck in front of that is, I mean, not seeing it, as I said, it's already set back, it's a small thing, but that is the historic house. So adding a deck in front of it and blocking the view, it's a non-starter for me. At the 1980s edition, the volume, you're just enclosing the porch with the setback of the second floor, it doesn't work. So I mean, it's hard to give any recommendations, and I think I agree with Commissioner Dorman. The best recommendation is to really have somebody look this with a more careful eye and try to look at the whole assembly and like the entire construction.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani?
Yeah, I think I agree with the remarks by my fellow commissioners so far. I would just emphasize again kind of like the primacy of that historic home, the 1980s edition aside, and some of its defining characteristics that staff have helped identify, to include the porch, the way that it's currently constructed, the gable, the way it currently is. I think finding a way to preserve that and maybe even keep that as the main entrance to the home might end up serving you very well. In particular, I'm noting that the proposal as it was drawn up here would be to add a bedroom where that sort of front door and porch is now. If we could find a way to reformat that and preserve maybe some of the main living spaces in the historic part of the building, and then some of the bedrooms up in the 1980s edition, that could be a great way. I believe someone mentioned here too the possibility of adding a dormer or a shed dormer to the upstairs of that 1980s edition. That might be an additional way to buy some volume or buy some square footage back up there to have additional bedrooms again in the 1980s part of the home. Sorry, I'm looking at the plan while I'm talking to you, so
No worries.
I'm reminding myself what's going on. I think that would be really important. In addition, I think that we would benefit from in whether the next preliminary consultation that we do or in the HOP as well, a site plan describing kind of the entire lot, where the structures fit within it, perhaps even what the grade looks like, and perhaps even as well the relation of this house to its neighbors. We see this a lot on site plans, or sometimes sort of a neighborhood view as well, to understand how these volumes and the masses speak to some of the other historic buildings that are nearby too. That can be really helpful in helping us grasp and understand the impact of the decks or the new roof lines or the additions, that type of thing. I think we would benefit tremendously from that in a subsequent session. I don't think I have anything more I can say right now.
Commissioner Doman?
I hate to be so blunt, but I find this presentation totally unacceptable. The staff has provided a lot of comments, a lot of information that they have identified. You need to work with them, answer their questions about the vinyl, about the front porch, about the roof line. All that stuff needs to be discussed either with an architect or additional conversations with staff. They can help you. But right now, what I have in front of me is, well, I would never approve it. I don't think anybody in HPC here could either. So you need a lot of work yet to go on this project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll finish off here. I'm not going to add any better news than you've already heard. Some advice. First off, you're not anywhere close to a hop. You will be coming back for at least one more preliminary, probably two, considering the state that this project is currently in. So just get your client to accept that. The recommendation to find an architect here in this area, I know you have an architect online or a home designer online that may be registered, but I think you need someone who's very, very skilled at working with historic properties in this area and with the HPC, and who's used to dealing with very difficult, tight lots with bungalows. So there are many good architects in this area, and especially over in the Tacoma Park area, the Garrett Park area, you know, there's architects that specialize in those communities in adding on to bungalows. They come through here all the time. They would know what to do. So that is a recommendation. We, the commission, can't give you names, but they're out there and they do good work. And you're gonna need someone who can really do good work. So the first thing, the historic house, okay? You don't get to mess around with that. You restore that front porch to what it was. You don't get to enclose it. You don't get to make it it's subservient to this 80s box. You need to deal with the deck in the back and take it off or take it down. Even if there's a steep slope, you can work with the steep slope to put a patio or a deck back there, but really the deck should not be above the floor level of the historic house or even a few inches below it. So again, treat the historic property, the contributing resource, as the jewel box of this property. It needs to be treated with respect and with good intentions. So anything you do, keep in mind that this is a little jewel box that you have to treat carefully. You have to restore it properly with the appropriate materials, and staff has already told you about some of those materials. So no vinyl siding, period. No inappropriate materials. The windows have to be correct, and you have to give them the information on the windows of the doors, everything. Now, as to, and also get the issue, get clarified right away with the zoning and how many people can live in this house, because that's gonna have a big impact on your project, on your client's project, that if they think they're going to have that many people who aren't related in a house, they are sadly mistaken. It will not happen. The county will stop it. And you don't wanna, they don't wanna invest money in this house when they can't actually do that. So finally, you have a big box, a very big box. Make use of it. I would recommend that you put a second floor, a full second floor, put some dormers on that big old box to break up the view. The front porch on the big box is not great, but it's better than what's being suggested. So make the best of what you've got with that front porch. But definitely get your space within the structure you have. And a lot of us are architects up here. And when we went to school and in our professional world, we know that when you've gone too far down in the rabbit hole that you can't get out, it's time to stop, tear everything up, and start over again. Because you can't fix a problem that is this bad. And this is not approvable by any stretch of the imagination. And we do not want you to come back with something that is just tweaked. It is not acceptable. It will not be approvable. Please tell your client that. They're not going to be happy, but that is the fact. They are dealing with a contributing resource. And they should make the most use of the big box that they've got for extra space and not even consider messing with the jewel box of the historic house. Looks like it was once a cute little house. And if there was some way to kind of dismantle that little bit of attachment to the box, it would be really nice to kind of separate the two with a better connection that's maybe a little glassier or a little less big, you know, in some way, so that it isn't the Great Dane chewing on the toy poodle. So good luck. I don't envy you having to tell this to your client. I would suggest you have them watch the recording of this, which will be up within a week, I believe, and they can watch it for themselves. And, you know, if you want to be in the room when they're doing that or not, I don't care, but that would probably be the fastest, the easiest way to get them to the point to understand this isn't happening. They need to really work with this property and meet the criteria for the historic district and meet the criteria for the county historic preservation code and come back again. And I don't know when you'll be back, and we look forward to seeing you again for another preliminary when you can come back with something that's can be discussed. All right? Thank you very much. You're very brave to come here by yourself. We
Thank you
do
so much.
appreciate it.
I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Aha. All right. We do have, we're going to go back now to preliminary 2B at 7329 Baltimore Avenue, Tacoma Park. And I have Kevin Brown and Eric Saul. Eric Saul we know as the architect, but Kevin Brown. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is the staff report for a preliminary consultation at 7329 Baltimore Avenue in Tacoma Park. This is a non-contributing resource constructed circa 1958. This is to be reviewed under the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, Montgomery County Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation. So the applicant proposes to remove the roof of the existing building, construct a second story, alter the fenestration, and construct a rear addition. So the existing building is a minimal traditional building with metal windows that's in very poor condition. I saw the photos for the listing when it was for sale recently, and I think the owner should be commended for taking on a project that has put a house in very poor shape to use. There are some interesting site conditions here. To the left of the house here, there's actually a 40-foot road dedication for a road that will apparently never be built. And then on the right, sort of up the hill, is a 1986 infill construction house that does not match the setback of the remainder of the street. So I guess tonight's theme is outlier 1980s construction in historic districts. Again, this is much taller with a gable end. Again, this is looking sort of up the road dedication from the rear of the property, and then along the right, the house is actually very close to the property line, but it complies with its zoning when it was constructed. So again, brick house, and roof is coming off. In the front, you see a shed front porch. Second story is going to be sided in fiber cement clapboards. They have vinyl windows. They're relocating the front door as part of that. In the rear, what you're seeing is all addition. Additionally, the second floor is going on, and composite deck off the rear, the engaged screened-in porch. And then on the left side, again, we've the brick sort of wrapping around the corner, and then it's fiber cement siding throughout. This is a new entrance. More information about this is identified later. But you see the fenestration for the existing portion, except for that window, is all changing as part of the proposal. And then the right elevation, all of the fenestration is changing except for the basement window. And then this is going to be fiber cement. Staff has some questions about the treatment of the transition for between the brick and the fiber cement. and wood panels. So staff finds that the design guidelines support whole house demolition, so a partial demolition of the proposed house should be approved as a matter of course. Staff finds constructing a second story with a new front gable roof will not negatively impact the character of the district as a whole, which is the standard that's established in the Tacoma Park design guidelines for non-contributing resources. Again, the property to the right is higher in grade and further set back from the subject property. Additionally, it has a side gable roof, so the full 2.5-story height is represented hard up against the gable end. And then there's a 40-foot road dedication to the left of the subject property that will not be built on, so there is a substantial separation between the subject property and the house to the left. Staff finds that the proposed materials identified at the time of submission were generally compatible under the design guidelines, and that staff finds the proposed rear addition will only be partially visible from the public right-of-way and will not substantially impact the visible size or mass when viewed from the public right-of-way. Staff does request more information regarding, again, we outline these running through the additions, for the treatment of the transition between the house's painted brick and the addition's fiber cement siding on the right elevation. There's a discrepancy between the floor plan and the rear elevation, so we just like confirmation of that actual window confirmation. And then confirmation of the treatment of the fiber cement siding in the rear of the second floor, which was not shown on the drawings. Staff finds that the proposed front porch helps to break up the house massing, and that the proposed rear deck will not be highly visible from the public right-of-way. As a non-contributing resource, the options are wide for what the applicant can install based on the HPC's adopted porch policy. The identification for the material in the back is composite. We'd like a material specification as part of the complete hop, but just about any material will be acceptable under the HPC's adopted policy. Staff finds that the fenestration alterations are compatible with the design guidelines, as those treatments will not impact the size or mass of the building. But we do have more questions about the treatment of the existing front door opening, which will be blocked in, the treatment of the right side brick wall to accommodate the proposed window layout, and then more information regarding the treatment of the area around the proposed left side entrance. It looks like in one of the floor plans there is a partial retaining wall that's going to be installed there. There will be some regrading, but we don't have the full extent of that or the design and materials associated with that. After publication of the staff report, the applicant provided us with material specifications for windows, doors, the rear deck railing, the roof shingles, gutters, and porch columns. Staff's preliminary findings on those materials that they're all appropriate under the design guideline. But more detailed information is required for any additional hardscaping, including front walks and retaining walls and walkways around the left entrance. We'll also see this project again in 2 weeks' time for a garage construction, detached garage construction. So just prompted questions for feedback from the HPC. Does the HPC concur with staff's finding regarding the size and mass of the second-story addition? Are there additional materials that the HPC finds are necessary to make a final determination of appropriateness? With new construction, oftentimes streetscape studies are required by the HPC. Does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the proposed rear addition will not have a negative impact on the surrounding streetscape and the character of the district as a whole? Does the HPC have any comments regarding the appropriateness of the proposed front porch or rear deck? And are there any other required revisions to the fenestration required to satisfy the requirements of 24A and the design guidelines? And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman?
I think you kind of answered. I was looking for a streetscape, and what you said is we don't have one at this time. Is that correct?
Correct. One was not submitted.
Okay. I would assume that you're going to ask for one. Is that?
Well, the question is actually posed to the HPC.
Okay, yeah.
So again, I mean, the site does have some unique conditions, including the road dedication on this side, and recognizing that this is on the other side, that this is a 1980s infill construction that is not contributing to the character of the district. So whether or not those two factors sort of negate the need for a streetscape study is one of the things that we're throwing to the commission to determine one way or the other.
Okay, I have not driven by it, and obviously I could answer my own question if I took the time to drive down and take a look at it, but, okay, I would like to see one eventually.
Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
I noticed on the plans, this is Commissioner Galway, I noticed on the plans that they were suggesting painting, and I'm guessing being a non-contributing home, staff found that to be an appropriate treatment.
Yeah, as much as we don't like to see brick painted, for a variety of reasons, that under the design guidelines for a non-contributing resource, we found that that was an acceptable treatment and would recommend approval as part of a HOP.
Thank you.
Commissioner Radu?
One question about this 40-foot street dedication. It's hard to tell from just the aerial with the parcels that was in the staff report. How much buffer will remain if I mean, yes, this probably will never happen, but if it were to happen, how close will the road be to the house?
I don't have an exact measurement for that, but it will need to maintain the setbacks required under the zoning ordinance when the building was constructed. So from the lot line is my understanding is there will need to be a setback from that. So in addition to the 40-foot road dedication, but that's a question best posed to the applicant.
Thank you.
If there are no more questions for staff, and I don't believe I've got any, Commissioner Dominiani? No? Okay. Then we have Kevin Brown and Eric Saul. If you'd like to come up and make sure the light is on green for the mic, and then identify yourselves and your relationship to this project for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Brown, and I am the homeowner.
Eric Saul, architect.
You have 7 minutes to, if you want to make a presentation or say something, or we can ask you questions.
Sure, we'll be short. As you can see, we're taking probably the most beautiful house in Tacoma Park and making it even more beautiful, which is impossible, I know, but we've done it. So we're going up one floor to make this from a very small 4-bedroom house, like all the bedrooms are really tiny, to I think 6 bedrooms for his multi-generational family and home office, all that kind of stuff during COVID. Everybody seems to want a home office too. So I don't think we're doing anything that's really expanding the footprint. We're going off the back about 14 feet to add, a porch, something outdoor space, and then expand the master bedroom on the top level. But everything is sort of within that same footprint going up. We're not going any wider to the side. We're not going any wider towards the 40-foot road. We are adding a front porch closer to the street, but that's all within county regulations. Nothing we're doing requires a variance. We're following all the zoning rules to a T. In terms of streetscape and all that, we were hoping to avoid a lengthy process, an expensive process to do that. We are lower than the house to the right by a lot. Our midpoint of our roof is only 25 feet or so, which is well under what a lot of houses are in this district and under the rules of zoning. The other house is like 100 feet off to the, maybe not 100, 80 feet off to the left. So we do think what we've done really kind of fits in perfectly and does not impair the character of the neighborhood, if you will. Couple of material issues, I'll let Kevin talk about that. But we are treating in any place where we cut brick and patch, which is a lot. This brick is not great brick. It's an old house that has not been cared for. So there's a lot of places that we just have to fix brick, and you're just gonna see patches all over the place, which is why we're painting. You're never gonna get that mortar to look right. You're never gonna match this 1950s brick. It's always just gonna stick out like a sore thumb. So I know there's debate about painting brick, but I think it's the best scenario for this particular house. And then to clarify a couple questions, I think we just made some last minute changes when we submitted the master bath window on the rear. It is going to be a single window. I think the plan shows 2 windows. We had kind of changed that last minute, but the elevation is correct. It's just one big picture window over the master bedroom tub. And what was the other question? Oh, the siding on the back, that was a CAD error. Somehow the hatching disappeared, but there is a note pointing at it saying hardy siding. We will treat the way the brick meets the paneling on the first floor like a vertical board, so that we didn't want to do siding crashing into brick. I thought like paneling looked a lot better. So the whole first floor has like a trim band above it to kind of separate the second floor siding from the first floor, more of a solid feel to it. So the paneling on the back could match the brick color when we paint it all, and then the siding could be a separate color. So that's kind of the thinking, instead of doing 2 floors of siding on the back. So we just kind of split it up that way. And then I'll let Kevin talk about like materials, like retaining walls and things like that. Thank you.
Good evening again. I just wanted to address a couple comments there. The 40-foot paper street, I've had council reach out to DDOT. There's no intent to ever build on the road. Unfortunately, we will have to go through the full subdivision and condemnation process. And so that may happen in the future, but the upside to that is it's gonna cost me roughly 25 grand to go through the process with legal and survey fees, and then I'll have to pay property taxes on the because it would get split between my property and the neighbor's property. So I'm not sure if that's going to happen soon. It's just a pretty significant financial blow to do that. I heard the request for a streetscape study, and I was hopefully that this application could be approved without it. It's pretty simple if you drop by it. There's this existing 1-story house. To the right of it with a substantial grade change is another non-contributing structure, which is going to be significantly higher than this house once it is constructed. To the left, there is the 40-foot streetscape plus a side yard that separates us from the house that would be contributing on the left. As far as I know there was a question about a window that differed from the elevation in the rear. He spoke to that, but I also wanted to point out that that window is rear facing, and so that the only way you would be able to see is if you were in the backyard facing the street. It will not be visible from the public. The retaining walls shown, none of the retaining walls shown are going to be above 4 feet. They're going to be landscaped block walls. They're not going to be full concrete retaining walls. And typically the county doesn't require you to do footings with the landscape block walls, and that's what we intend to do. As far as getting access to that side door, I don't really want to do a bunch of impervious stuff, so we're probably going to do pavers or steppers. I don't want to do some concrete sidewalk to it, so it's going to be pavers and steppers to get to that side entrance. And I think that answers most of the questions that the staff had. Do you have more or no? My hope would be is that if we've addressed the major critical issues that the board would be able to kind of approve it with leaving some stuff for staff purview, some of the smaller details that really don't justify your time to review. And I think
And
that's all I have.
there you go. We'll have questions for you, but just before we start, I happen to know this house. I don't live very far away. And when I used to walk to the metro, the Tacoma Park Metro, I would walk down your street because it's the nicest street to walk down than Tacoma Avenue. And so I'm very familiar with this house. I mean, I'm familiar from the previous owner when he used to sit out in his front yard. But this house, again, you mentioned the house to the right is up much, much higher. But also the house to the left, if I'm correct, also sets up a little bit higher, doesn't it?
It's
Or
a
at
two-
least it
it's a
feels
two-story,
like it.
Yeah. It's 2 stories. It's higher than it's currently. I think they'll be around the same height once we add the second floor.
Once you add on, they'll get
It's the
more
second
level.
floor.
But and then the paper road, as you said, is this huge yard that kind of has a dip in the middle
It
of
has
it.
a dip in, and I think they just did some stormwater management improvements
Oh, yeah.
out there. They added the impervious street area by the drains, and so if you look at
Oh,
if you look at the grades, it looks like that paper street is kind of where any kind of rainwater comes down the hill, and it kind of takes it down because it's down gradient to the back. Right?
Yeah. Oh, I remember when, it was like the place that mosquitoes would breed. But yeah, I saw that construction but a week or so ago.
Right.
And wondered what they were doing because they dug a huge
So
trench.
they removed the impervious paving. They dug down it's basically like a big dry well that they put in the street so that on small rainfall, water doesn't even make it to the gutters. It just gets,
Yeah.
it's for quality and
Because you were the low spot, your property would be the low spot. and
is
would
at the low
flood.
spot, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to spend quite a bit on waterproofing.
Interesting, but yes, I'm very familiar with your house. Questions for the applicant, Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman. I asked about a streetscape, and I guess I'd still like to see one, but I hope that I can get enough time to drive by, because I'd like to look at that, and I'd like to look at the low spot that you're talking about on your property or street. In some of the photographs, it shows the house at one time had window AC units in it, correct? And it's page 351 out of 450, something like that. It shows a lot of window units. And I assume you're going to put in central air, is that correct? So what I was looking for is a site plan. It shows the house and location on the property. And you were talking about maybe having to put some steppers in or something going back to the door. I mean, I think that should be identified on a drawing, what you propose to do. And if there's going to be a outside condensing unit for your air conditioning, you need to specify where it's going to be put on your site. So I think that should be part of your submission. I'd like to see a site plan, what kind of grading you're going to have to do, and where your stepping stones are going to be put.
Just, Commissioner Doman, real quick, if you're looking at the whole application, page 31 was a site plan that also included identified trees on the site. So no, that site plan did not identify where the AC units were going, but a site plan was provided as part of this, and that included the tree survey.
Okay, I stand corrected. I did not see this. This is true.
And we can agree to put the condensers under the porch in the rear, if that resolves your issue concern.
And does this show the walkway that you're talking about in this drawing? Getting to the
It does not show the walkway.
Okay.
It shows the walkway to the front door.
But you had one to the back door you had to?
Well, the back door is going to be just, in the future, we have another submittal coming that will be here see you guys in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. We're going to put a driveway in and a new garage in the back in the future. And so there's a gravel driveway along the side of the house. So we
It's
don't,
not part of this.
it's not part of this application, but gravel will likely be very close to the house. And so we're just going to basically walk on either gravel or stones or something. It's not going to be like a hardscape sidewalk like concrete.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? Commissioner Dominiani?
Thanks so much. First of all, well, I can editorialize later too, but I think it's a great project overall. But I have a question about the chimney on the existing house, the way it is. It looks like that's going to be removed entirely, is that correct? In place of a small vent for the new fireplace?
Yes, the chimney's going to be removed.
Oh, okay, got it. I was thinking perhaps like, I've seen sort of salvage brick taken from things like this before. I know you were saying that you have challenges matching the sort of size and shape of brick as it was produced back in the day. That could be a potential source of a donation for you as you're filling in some of the fenestration elsewhere. And it could be a little more matchy-matchy, depending if you're able to source good ones that aren't ruined by the way that they've been sitting for a long time and stuff. It could be an option for you. I want to understand. Sometimes we see where the historic chimney is incorporated into the new addition or the new house, but this one will be removed entirely, as I understand it now.
Yeah, this chimney's not in great shape either. So like to add to it, this house is in poor shape. So we would love to, stack the chimney, keep going, but there's, on the inside, it's so damaged that we're taking the whole chimney out. So, yeah, but we could reuse brick for sure.
Commissioner Galway or Radu? Questions? No? You said the garage is going around behind the house, and that's because you can't actually use this paper street area. Are you allowed to put a driveway in that strip, or no, you've got to keep your driveway close to the house?
So when I first was buying the house, there is a curb cut. There's a curb cut there.
Yeah.
But that curb cut is not on my property. I believe the county has used that curb cut, I don't know, to get there, maybe cut the grass or do something. So that existing curb cut that is shown there is not on the property as part of the paper street. And you cannot use that paper, I can't, now, both neighbors have used that paper street for the last 20 years, but I cannot build anything on it or put any structures on it or do anything on the paper street.
Okay, so your driveway's gonna have to stay pretty close to, your gravel driveway is gonna have to stay pretty close to your house, correct?
Yes, and part of the reasons we did separate applications is we wanted to get the house approved and get going. The garage is if I can afford, and so I didn't want the discussions on the garage and how we get back there and how we locate it to impact or delay the main focus, which is the house, because again, the garage is going to be if budget allows.
I don't recall seeing it, but have you considered the colors for the property, for the house yet? Because Tacoma has a lot of variety in colors.
Yes, have not figured out colors. I typically like to drive around the neighborhood and make sure I'm not the same color as the houses on it bothers me like when you get like two gray houses right next to each other. So, I'll kind of go through a process, and I forgot to introduce my wife, who was here as well, to pick the colors. I do like black windows. The trim is going to be white. It'll be a hardy color that's not prominent kind of within the immediate houses, because I don't want it to be like matchy with like a neighbor or something. That's not technical
Sometimes
term.
in Tacoma, it's pretty hard to be matchy considering some of the colors they paint their houses.
Right.
All right, if there's no other questions, then we will start our comments. Would anybody like to, Commissioner Radu?
Well, thank you for coming to us. Considering that this is like it is a non-contributing structure, and it is a one-story, and a lot of houses in that area in the neighborhood are 2 stories. And, you're not going beyond the footprint. I don't have a problem with like putting a porch, even if that seems to be a little closer to the street that other structures nearby, from what I can tell. I think that's appropriate, and the volume is appropriate. I think I would like a little more definition to the materials. I mean, I agree, I mean, you do have some of the materials specified, but maybe a little bit, well, when you come with a hop, just have them all identified. I don't really have a problem with like fenestration. I mean, it is a non-contributing, and it's like the level of scrutiny is lower, and I think I'm trying to keep it to the volume and scale mostly. Personally, I don't think we need a streetscape, but some of my fellow commissioners might disagree with that. I'm okay with the proposed rear addition. I don't think we'll have a negative impact, so from the feedback requested from us on the screen, I don't really have any problems with any of the issues that I see in the proposal.
Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. You know, when you start with an absolute jewel and then you start to add to it, if you were here for the last one, you can hear where we have a lot of problems. I think you have the opposite situation where you have a home that you're going to make much better by adding on and creating this addition. So I don't think I need to see a streetscape based on just the site plan that you had and the locations of the homes. I think the only thing I'd want to see is, you know, the materials. Just make sure that you do identify what the color that you propose, although we don't typically reject or accept it based on the color. It'd be nice to just know what you're doing there. What are the materials? You know, just making sure that's laid out so that it's clear. And I think other than that, I can certainly support the project. Thank you.
Commissioner Dominiani?
Yeah, I tend to agree entirely that I could support the project. I think the mass and size works great. The rear deck doesn't bother me. I agree with the staff that the proposed addition in the rear is not going to have a negative impact on the streetscape. And I agree as well that the changes in fenestration are probably going to be fine. And I actually am familiar with the area pretty much as well. And I know that the sort of 1980s house is set back a bit further and stuff, but I don't think that I need to see a streetscape either. I think understanding the height of this house and as it relates to, again, like many of the other two-story buildings, especially to the left from where this is on the street there, I think it's all going to be perfectly approvable from my perspective as you brought it forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
As a Commissioner Dolman, I have nothing else to add. Looks fine to me. Question for staff: I mean, we've kind of run through this, and the commissioners that are present all seem to be on board with staff's recommendations. Again, do the applicants need to come back with a hop then to proceed ahead, or can they go from here since they've answered your questions, they've answered our questions?
So this will need to be approved at a future HPC meeting. There are some fine details that need to be worked out based on what staff's identified. However, this may be an instance where the applicant team can begin working on the engineering drawings and those plans, which also do take a little bit of time before they're ready to submit for permitting. So, you know, that time is not just time sitting on their hands. So, you know, again, if there were all 9 commissioners here, that you would already have a majority support based on attendance this evening. So I think the applicants understand the level of support that they've gotten from the HPC. And once we have those worked out, it's full speed ahead. But this was advertised as a preliminary consultation. You don't have the authority to transfer that to a HOP during a meeting. It will need to be advertised. The staff report will need to be generated. You know, in a perfect world, we'll be able to tell the applicant, you know, you don't need to prepare anything. This is going to be approved by consent. But we just need to wait until that time.
Okay, thank you for the comment. And I'm satisfied. All the commissioners seem to agree. I'm happy with what you brought forth. Thank you.
And this is Chair Burdett. I'll finish up. As you've heard, everybody, timing is everything sometimes in these hearings, because the case before you was 180 degrees from where you are. And especially Commissioner Galway's comparison. You're taking a rather sad post-war house and you're going to make it into a much nicer house. And I have no problems with the massing or the porches, or we would like to see more about the fenestration, so, provide that to the staff. I look at the front elevation and it's charming. I would like to see a little more detail on the charming part, because it doesn't look like you're going to be making one of the dark gray boxes that you see around Tacoma, that area. There's one up the street from you. And I think you could definitely go a little bit further, either with a little more detailing or with a good selection of color of your materials. But I think it's going to be a big improvement on the block. I'm sure your neighbors are very happy to see something happening to this house, because it has been in very sad shape for so long. And you're going to have a great side yard to have lots of picnics in and parties on. So go ahead, and you'll be back here for a hop, hopefully soon. You do have our, support for this project. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. Group 4 tax credits.
All right, this is Laura with the staff. Staff has determined that there are 24 applications in Group 4 of the 2024 Historic Preservation Tax Credit applications, consisting of $585,739.08 in eligible expenditures for owners of properties designated on the Master Plan for Historic Preservation in Montgomery County. We've provided summary sheets for those projects and are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for staff on the tax credits? If not, can I have a motion to approve the tax credits?
This is Commissioner Galway. I make the motion that we recommend that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the Group 4 2024 tax credits.
This is Commissioner DeBriniani. I'd second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays, no abstentions. The tax credits are approved. Did anybody read the minutes for June 25th? You, Commissioner Dimini.
This is Commissioner DeBriniani. I read the minutes for the June 25th, 2025 Historic Preservation Committee meeting, and I would move to approve those minutes unmodified because everything looked correct to me.
Did you make a motion?
Oh, yeah, so sorry. I make a motion to approve those minutes.
Do I have a second on the motion?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The minutes are approved. Commission items, the only thing I know of is I'll be giving testimony tomorrow in front of the planning board for the Jordan House up in Germantown that we voted on June 11th. Was that right? June 11th? The commission supported keeping it on the locational atlas and adding it to the locational. Oh, adding it to the locational atlas, that's right. Yep. And adding it to the index of historic sites. So I'll be testifying for that. I don't think there's any other commission items.
Who do you make the presentation to?
The planning board. Yeah. Staff items.
No staff items.
Anything else? Then that is it. We are adjourned. Yay.